Check.
Oh, that does work. Whoa.
Check.
Check, check. Check, check.
Okay, let me grab Jackie.
Check, check.
Jim, that's right.
Hi, everyone. My name's Noelle Danke, and I'm the Public Affairs person for Fallbrook Public Utility District. Wow, crowded room. Thank you so much to all of you for coming tonight to hear about this important issue. Before we get into the program, Supervisor Jim Desmond is here, and we know he has a very busy schedule. So we'd like to offer him the opportunity to come up and say a couple of words, or just wait until the end if he is available to answer any specific questions. Would you like to? Thank you.
All right. All right. Hello, Fallbrook. Anybody thirsty? All right. We've been talking about water here tonight. And thanks for, I want to say thanks to FPUD and to Rainbow for putting this on here, this town hall. There's a very important topic that's coming up that eventually you may be voting on the potential detachment of Fallbrook, FPUD, and Rainbow water districts from the San Diego County Water Authority. So I'm here wearing many hats. I got to spin my hat around several times. I'm here as your county supervisor. I also sit on the San Diego County Water Board. I'm the county's representative on the Water Board. And I sit and I chair the LAFCO committee, which is going to be taking a vote on this on the potential detachment towards the end of this year. So I'm Switzerland here tonight. I have to hear. I want to be able to hear your input. So I'm here to hear your input, your questions, your comments, and things like that, so that I can make help to make an informed decision at LAFCO, where I'm going to get the opportunity to vote on this. But I can't take a position at this point in time. I can't, because if I do, then I can't vote. So I don't want to lose that opportunity to be able to vote on this. So, hello, this is on. Okay, you're going to get the opportunity if. And I understand Adam Wilson is here from LAFCO. He's going to talk to you a little bit about procedures and things like that. But if it's going to go to LAFCO for a vote towards the end of this year. And then if that LAFCO says, yes, you can go ahead and detach FPUD and you can detach Rainbow from, or I think it's either, could we say one and not the other? I don't know. Maybe. We'll find out. But if we do say, yes, it's okay, you're clear for a detachment, you, the ratepayers, are going to get to vote. You're going to be the final say in this, up or down. It only takes 50% to do that. So I'm really happy to be here. I want to hear your inputs. I'm just here. I'm going to hang out in the back, be a fly on the wall, and make sure, I'm going to hear your input and your questions so I can help make an informed decision when I have the opportunity at LAFCO to do that. So thank you very much. I'm going to bring up Adam Wilson. He's going to talk about, from LAFCO, he's going to be talking about the process where we are right now in timing. So is that right? I don't know. Did I mix up your order, Noel? We were going to. You can do whatever you would like. I'm going to sit down. Thank you very much. All right.
So next, I'd like to invite up our two board presidents. This is Dave Baxter. He's for Fallbrook Public Utility District, and coming up with him right now is Hayden Hamilton. and I'll just.
Thank you. Thanks, Noel. Hi, my name's Adam. Leave it to the county supervisor, right? Where'd he go? He's already hiding back there. Guys, good evening. I mean, really, good evening. Are we all concerned about water? I mean, that's kind of obviously a rhetorical question, right? We're here. We get to serve on the board. You guys elect us, and this is a very, very serious topic for us. This is the year that I get to serve as your board president for Fallbrook Public Utility District. It's a tremendous honor, and we're working very, very hard to do some of the things that are important to you. Things like this town hall is an opportunity tonight for you guys to voice to everyone publicly what your needs are, what your concerns are, understand how things work, okay? And we've got some people here to help answer those questions. One of the things we also want to do is really get into the details of what detachment means. There's a lot of information out there. Maybe it's confusing for folks. I hope that when we all leave this evening, everyone will understand what detachment is, what it means for FPUD ratepayers, what it means for Rainbow ratepayers. Okay, we'll keep it real simple because it can get very complicated very quick, right? So I hope that everyone understands. If you don't, then I'm going to speak for Hayden tonight for just a second. As Rainbow and FPUD, we support detachment. We think it's a very, very important thing because we can save all of us. My family, we're farmers here in town. We love to save money. We spend a lot of money on water, and we are looking at ways of saving millions of dollars in water that goes directly to the ratepayers every year, something that we can do. Now, there's a process for this. As Jim mentioned, there's LAFCO. If anybody doesn't know what LAFCO represents, it stands, yes, sir. Yeah, it stands for Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO. Okay. These guys are the agency that is made up of San Diego County elected officials and appointed people as a board that get to decide directionally, jurisdictionally, and man, I'm Appalachian. That's a big word for me. So thank you, guys. We got through that one tonight, right? Boundaries and other things that have to do with San Diego County, all right? And so we are very, very pleased, keen, for you coming up and spending some time with us. This is maybe, I know your second, if not third, town hall. And we really appreciate that because Keene serves as LAFCO's executive director, and it's a big deal for having you up here this evening. So we thank you very, very much for that. Let's give you a quick round of applause. Absolutely. Absolutely. So as Jim had quickly mentioned, if LAFCO does approve the change in water suppliers, then it gets presented to you guys. We don't get to make any of these decisions. We just are the wheels that kind of get the bus where it needs to be. Because if LAFCO approves, it will go to a vote, and it will go to you guys. And you guys decide if you want it. If you don't want it, great. You know, this is what you elected us for, to go try to save you money. And we're here to answer those questions tonight. But it will go to a vote if LAFCO approves us going forward. So to explain a little bit more, I'm going to hand this off to Hayden because, Hayden represents the Rainbow Municipal District, and they've got similar concerns, but also they're a little bit more unique. There's a little bit more agriculture going on in Rainbow. You guys all know Tom. Tom's been around for a long time. In fact, the last time I was in a room with this many people, it might have been at your 70th birthday party. No, I'm just kidding. It's terrible. But so, Hayden, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Tough act to follow. I'm Hayden Hamilton. I'm the president of the Rainbow Municipal Water District Board of Directors. And we started this process looking at how we could provide good quality water to our ratepayers at the most affordable rate. And this has led us toward the detachment solution, or exploration maybe is a better word. We do want to take a special say a special thank you to Supervisor Desmond for coming up here and sitting in on this and being able to hear firsthand from our ratepayers about the detachment activity. As Dave mentioned, our two districts are seeking to change our water supplier from the San Diego County Water Authority to the Eastern Municipal Water District. where we're pretty sure we'll be able to save our ratepayers millions, not thousands, but millions of dollars a year. FPUD General Manager Jack Beebe and General Manager Tom Kennedy from Rainbow will then present additional information about detachment, but I think we're going to turn it over to Adam, who is the individual within Keene's staff that has been really riding herd on collecting information and understanding all the aspects that are involved in this very, very unique situation. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to Adam.
Whatever's easiest. Perfect. Testing. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see so many people out here in the crowd and coming out in your community. Quick introduction again. My name is Adam Wilson, and I was brought on by LAFCO staff to assist them in the processing of the proposals by Rainbow and Fallbrook for detachment from the County Water Authority. More importantly, maybe, I've also been serving as moderator to an ad hoc committee that was also formed to assist the LAFCO Commission, which Jim mentioned he's a member of and chair of, to assist that commission in their ultimate determination when this gets before them. So in the infancy of forming this ad hoc group, the 10 members that sit on this advisory body determined that their time best served would be to hire an independent water expert to look at 3 specific topics related to the proposal. And in doing so, we hired a water economist from UC Berkeley by the name of Dr. Michael Hanneman. And Dr. Hanneman took his task and provided a report that looked at those 3 topics. And those 3 topics are water reliability, rate impacts, and any potential exit or departure fee should this proposal go forward and be conditioned as such, or may not be conditioned. That report was, over the last calendar year, put together by Dr. Michael Hanneman, and he submitted and completed that report of January of this year. He presented that report to the ad hoc committee in February, a month later, and it was determined by that advisory group that the duties that he was tasked to do was fulfilled, and that the report that he provided was value to the process and the information to what Keene and I will be eventually studying through the process of our job. I do want to make one caveat, and I think Jim and Jack will appreciate this. I think from a factual and technical standpoint, I don't think all the information in there was fully agreed by all parties, but I just do want to reemphasize that the 10 members on this ad hoc did agree that the report was completed in a fashion that would provide value to us in making those determinations. So throughout that process, or after the completion of this report, it was then brought to us by a couple stakeholders that there should be additional items to be studied by this ad hoc. We asked all those stakeholders to compile that list. There's a whole host of them, but we determined from an internal standpoint that moving forward, that studying cost rate impacts to the city of San Diego and some smaller districts in this region would provide a broader context to those rate impacts. And also, just to go back to Hanneman's report, I do want to mention that it is on our website. It's 114 pages long. I'm not going to sit here and read it to you all tonight, but I do want to kind of give you a high glossary takeaway of what those 3 topics concluded. With respect to reliability, Dr. Hanneman concluded that both Eastern and the County Water Authority are both reliable wholesale water suppliers, but he also mentioned that the County Water Authority is better positioned locally because of the Carlsbad desalination plant and the higher priority to Colorado River water known as QSA. With relation to topic 2, cost impacts, if detachment were to occur, he concluded that both Rainbow and Fallbrook would receive a annual combined net savings of $7.7 million. And if the same detachment occurred, he concluded that the Water Authority would have an annual net lost revenue of $12 million. So those numbers are compiled through so many variables of fixed rates, variable rates, methodologies, formulologies, but he determined based on his conclusions that an exit or departure fee would be fair and reasonable and economically justifiable, and based on those numbers, he basically concluded that the floor for an exit fee be $13 million annually and a ceiling of $18 million annually combined from Rainbow and Fallbrook to pay. And he concluded that that window of time to be paid be no less than 3 years and no more than 10 years. So there's a lot of wiggle room and subjectivity into it, but that was his attempt to kind of see if this detachment would occur, what would make sense to try to make the remaining member agencies whole. So moving forward, we are now taking those additional steps to study those additional costs to, as I mentioned, the City of San Diego. You might ask yourself why we're going to look at the City of San Diego, because they are the largest member agency of the Water Authority. And to take the flip side coin of that, we're going to look at some smaller districts and see what those rate impacts would be to them, and so that we can kind of have a broad concept, a sliding scale of what Rainbow and Fallbrook, where would they fit in that world. So that's kind of the gist of the report. We'll be here tonight to answer any questions either now or in the future. And just real quickly, I know a lot of you are probably going to ask where are we at in the process, what's the timelines, and I can just provide it to you real quick here. We're going to take the next month or two to drill down deeper on those costs. We are going to then present that to some additional stakeholders. And then ultimately speaking, as Supervisor Desmond mentioned, our end goal is to get this final proposal to the LAFCO Commission by the end of this year, hopefully early November. So. Do you want to do the questions at the end? Okay. No, they want to do all the questions at the end if you want to hold them.
Yeah, and just so we can get through this and it may answer some of the questions. He'll be here, I promise.
Yeah.
He'll come back up.
Okay, so next we're going to show a very short video that explains what detachment is.
At Rainbow Municipal Water District and Fallbrook Public Utility District, we are working together to serve our communities. Have you noticed the cost of water going up? Our agencies currently buy our water from the San Diego County Water Authority. Under SDCWA, ratepayers in Fallbrook and Rainbow are paying for pipelines and facilities down south that we don't benefit from. The law that created SDCWA gives us the right to detach. And as it turns out, Fallbrook and Rainbow have connections that can be served by a different wholesaler, Eastern Municipal Water District. Eastern's cost for the same water is lower than SDCWA. We'll save money on water costs, which will provide the opportunity for Fallbrook and Rainbow to halt rate increases. And the water supply from Eastern will be just as reliable as it is from SDCWA. So we have started the process to part ways with SDCWA and begin purchasing our water from Eastern. This process is called detachment. And if approved, it will ultimately be subject to a vote of the residents of Fallbrook and Rainbow. Detachment, a reliable supply of water at a lower cost.
Okay, and next I'd like to invite up our two general managers. This is Jack Beebe from Fallbrook Public Utility District and Rainbow. Tom Kennedy from Rainbow.
And I promise we're going to move through this very quickly because, there are people that are already sort of up to speed on this and want to be able to ask questions to LAFCO, and I know Adam's very excited to get some questions. And so we will make sure to have that time. But I wanted to get through this just so we give everyone the full background. In the world, so a lot of people looking at this from the outside think this is taking a long time and seems like a very complicated process. In the world of what we do, so I've been in water now for several decades, this is sort of like leaving the United States in the water world for sort of the magnitude of what we're talking about. It may not, in the big picture for everyone in here, the difference to you you wouldn't see anything except on your bill, but just in terms of the politics of water in San Diego County, this is a big deal, and that's part of why it's taking so long. And LAFCO plays a very important role in really making sure special districts are doing things properly. So they play an oversight role. We're a special district. We have an elected board. But you've seen sometimes locally elected boards could head off in directions that don't make sense. LAFCO is another safeguard to make sure that board you elected, is doing everything on the up and up. So they play an important role. Yes, it's a little bit more government and it takes some time, but it really is there to protect all of you also. So anyway, I'm going to give a kind of a brief background. The main driver is cost of water. Cost of water, Fallbrook and Rainbow is a big issue because people use more water per capita, not because they're wasting water, but because we live in a rural environment. And so those investments that were made within the county, they're sort of born on how much water you use. So that impact is greater in areas like Fallbrook and Rainbow than it is in other areas. So City of San Diego, the net impact per person is a lot less than the net impact per person up here because they use less water, because they have smaller yards and other things. And so that cost of water for people in San Diego maybe ended up being $5, where for a lot of people up here it was $200, right? It's become a cost that really makes it hard to stay here in some cases and be able to do the things you want to do. So we recognize that. That's why this is sort of an outside-the-box approach and said, hey, we need to do something significant to address this. And we don't have, a lot of other options out there. This just shows you, these are projections. So this is the Water Authority up on the top, Eastern's projections at the bottom for cost of water in terms of where they're going to go. You may see some people present longer, like 15, 20-year projections. It gets very hard way out there in the future. So the next 5 years, we generally have a pretty good sense of where things are going. You get 15 to 20 years down the road, there's a lot of uncertainty in the water industry where they're going. But today, you can see there's a significant difference in the cost of water. And really, they're escalating. This next year, they're about escalating at the same rate, but there's that big difference to start. So if you take a number that's $1,800 an acre foot and increase at 5%, versus one that's $1,100 an acre foot at 5%, they never catch up, right? And so that's one of the big issues we're dealing with. We go to the next one. Does this thing work? So this is a look at Rainbow's cost of water and demand. So blue's their cost of water, and I apologize, I'm an engineer, so I have to do charts. So everyone's got to bear with me and look at charts. Blue's cost of water. Orange is their water demands. And you can see, the cost of water has a very significant impact on our demands. Other areas have seen slight decreases or some decreases, not on the order of magnitude you see in Fallbrook and Rainbow, because that cost drives behavioral changes. A lot of our ag industry, which is sort of the cornerstone of Fallbrook and Rainbow, gets hit very hard with that, and so do a lot of our residential customers. So if that impact that we've seen in the drop in demand is more significant than what others in the county have seen. Go to the next one. Thing works. So as we said, why can't our board just make this decision, right? So instead of paying the Water Authority, we could just start telling Eastern to bill us and just pay that bill that's 30% less, right? Why can't we do that? Because we have to go through this process with LAFCO, and there is an act. So LAFCO's got to approve it, then it would go to ratepayers. Also, just to note, we've taken this to a number of key local agencies, our planning groups, the Chamber of Commerce, they've gone through this, they've all supported it, and they understand how important this is. The Water Authority's official position is I'll go into next, they don't oppose it, but they want conditions to be met, but it's become fairly clear of, sort of the actions they're taking. It's saying something, but acting a little bit different. They've been pretty clearly opposing. We'll get to questions at the end. Promise. So as we said, LAFCO process, hopefully the end of the year. So hopefully commission votes in November time frame, and then after that it would get scheduled for election. So the election would still take some time after that, but we would be through all the hurdles except election at that point. So the Water Authority response was I'll turn it over to Tom here to walk through these.
Thanks, Jack. And if you don't know, I'm Tom Kennedy. I'm the general manager at Rainbow. So the Water Authority took a few actions. Well, the first, after the Public Records Act request started, that they went into closed session and came out and authorized $1 million in legal costs and other consultant costs to oppose our detachment effort, which is disappointing because we get to pay about 6% of that $1 million too. And so then they passed a resolution to say that the detachment shouldn't harm Fallbrook and Rainbow customers. Not sure how that would happen, but shouldn't harm us, shouldn't raise anyone else's water bill, and that it shouldn't degrade the environment, and that the Water Authority wouldn't lose any voting power at Metropolitan Water District, which is the larger wholesaler here in Southern California. This is a big issue for them for whatever reason we'll get into later. And they also, in direct conflict with what the County Water Authority Act says, they wanted to make the vote countywide, which, as everyone up here knows, there's a lot of great people in Fallbrook, but there's a lot more people down south. And that is something that would be a very difficult thing for us to overcome. Then they started a PR campaign called Stronger Together. So they started putting hashtag Stronger Together on their social media and whatnot because they're trying to tell you that you're much stronger when we're with them. So as Adam aptly noted earlier, the LAFCO's consultant has looked at it and to summarize a very large and somewhat unusually formatted document. I lost my, is that one dead? Okay. No, the reliability is the same. Now, yeah, the Water Authority has a desal plant, so in some, crazy measure, they're slightly more reliable, but we don't get that water up here. That water all goes south. They were going to save about $7.7 million a year, and that the net cost of the Water Authority is between $10 and $12 million a year. Those are all facts. Now, are the numbers exact and a little bit higher, a little lower? It's hard to say. It depends on how much water each year and other sorts of variables. But the big sticking point right now is this exit or departure fee. And so the County Water Authority Act is very clear, we believe, that if there are obligations, that they are to be recovered through the property tax process. And it was originally designed a long time ago for, I don't know if some of you remember when the Bonsall Unified School District separated from Fallbrook about 10 years ago or so, there was some outstanding Fallbrook bonds that the folks in the Bonsall had to keep paying. I think they paid for 5 or 6 more years until those bonds were satisfied. It's something along those lines. That's how it would go, that the Water Authority had some obligations. Right now on your property tax bill, there's a small cohort that goes to the Water Authority. The way we see it, they would continue to receive that until however you define these obligations was retired. But the Water Authority came back in one of their submittals last year to LAFCO and said, there's a total obligation of $1.2 billion collectively from us, which is just crazy because we haven't sent anywhere near that amount of money down since the formation of the Water Authority. And so it's just a bonkers, they forecasted all the revenue they would get for us for the next 100 years. And it's a strange way to look at things, but that's what they did. And interestingly, and as Adam indicated, the consultant derived this departure fee in a way that's not consistent with the law. He admittedly did not look at the law, because the law says how to do this. In the County Water Authority Act, there's a provision on how do you join the County Water Authority. Fallbrook was a founding member of the Water Authority. Rainbow joined about 10 years later. We had to go through a process. There was a fee schedule set up. We had to pay the fee to get in. And then there's also another section that says how you get out. And it says here what you pay when you leave. And that's what we're thinking LAFCO should pay attention to and follow. Dr. Hanneman came up with a whole different thing to where he said it would be between $15 and $18 million, which is kind of weird because the net impact of Water Authority is between $10 and $12 million. So somehow they're going to be positive, $7, $8 million a year on this. I don't get it. And the other thing is that impacts every customer up here about $60 a month. To somehow offset what somebody in San Diego is about $1 a month extra cost. So we think that's totally, arbitrary and patently unfair, and we hope that LAFCO, as they consider these things, will recognize that as well. And so one of the things that we've been stressing is, hey, let's just follow the law. Why not? The legislature put it in there. Law says what to do. Let's just do that, just for granted. But the Water Authority has argued that the County Water Authority Act is outdated. Yeah. It was 1944. It's actually been amended a couple dozen times since by the Water Authority itself. And so it's not like it's a dead piece of legislation. But that's the weird thing about laws. They're still there, even if you don't like them. There's lots of laws that a lot of us don't like, but they're there, and we still have to deal with them. So you've probably seen in the Village News and some other areas some information that the Water Authority's been slinging out here. And I don't see anybody from the Water Authority here, but I know that it's an open meeting. We were hoping they would be here. But they've claimed recently in an editorial that their water is actually going to be cheaper than Met's water 10 or 15 years from now, which is crazy. As Jack said, there's already a big delta, and they escalate about the same rate. You just don't catch up with that. And it's clearly false. The rate forecast that they were using, Met just decided what their rate's going to be for the next couple of years. Their increase is way less than half of what the Water Authority is using to forecast this. So what they're doing is they're artificially inflating numbers from Met and the worst case scenario, and then taking a best case scenario for their own numbers and showing, look, this could happen. Trust me, it's not going to happen. They claimed our reliability to be worse during a drought. They've been coming out a lot with this drought messaging and how all their stuff they've been doing. But the reality is right now, have you noticed that we are in a drought right now? The state has put forward rules for the governor called for everybody to go to the level 2 drought for up to 20% cutback. The rules and regulations the state is promulgating that's going to compel Water District to act over the next month or two are identical, whether we were in Eastern or in the Water Authority. There's no special benefit to being at the Water Authority that you're going to avoid some sort of cutback coming down from the state like back, remember, in 2014, 2015. There's no magic bullet there. So if there is a big drought, and if there is all throughout the state some mandatory restrictions, we're all going to feel the pain. We're going to feel the same whether we're in Eastern or whether we're here in the Water Authority. We're just going to pay a lot less for the opportunity. So the Water Authority continued to push through in multiple things, and the first draft of Dr. Hanneman's report actually had it in there that their net loss will be $46 million a year. We don't even send $46 million a year total down there. And thankfully, Dr. Hanneman, after we shared with him, math, was able to figure out that it's actually $10 to $12 million. There was another thing about it. In the early 90s and into the late 90s, the Water Authority created the Emergency Storage Project, which is the one that built the Liebenheim Dam, raised the San Vicente Dam, and built various pump stations. We've been paying for that in this region since about 2000, so about 22 years now. Combined, we've sent $25 to $30 million down there already. And part of that project, the last component that has never been built, are the Fallback and Rainbow pump stations. The Water Authority cannot move water stored in San Vicente Reservoir or Liebenheim Reservoir up to this area. They just don't have the facilities to do it. We paid for them, but we don't have them. And the reality is that Diamond Valley Lake and Lake Skinner in Riverside County are much closer than San Vicente, and we're downhill from them, so it's a little easier to get the water here. And so the Water Authority has on their books $35 to $40 million budgeted to build those pump stations, which are on hold now because of our detachment effort, but they're going to save that money. We already gave it to them, and we're not asking for it back. We're just saying, all right, you can keep it, we want the credit. For whatever reason, Dr. Hanneman didn't credit that money, and we don't understand why. And we hope through the next phases that LAFCO goes through that they will recognize that that is actual savings of the Water Authority. The reality is that at $10 or $12 million a year and $40 million instant savings, there's zero impact to Water Authority for 4 years. And then after that, it'll gradually get larger. So we don't understand why they want $1.2 billion from us. So again, this is about fairness. We want the LAFCO to determine what's fair. What have we contributed to everyone down south? All the extra money you've been paying every year has built all kind of pipelines down there in San Diego. Right now, how many people here have had a water main break near their house? There's quite a few out there. We're spending money building pipes down south when we need to use that money here in your neighborhoods. Fallbrook's 100 years old this year. Rainbow's about 70 years old. And we got a lot of old pipes. We got pipes that predate the district built by mutual water companies. There was a handful of farmers putting a pipe in the ground, and we got to replace those pipes. And if we can't save money on our water costs, your rates are going to have to go up even further just so we can keep the mains from failing in the streets. The water costs in the water are going to continue to go up, especially if they go through with their plan to spend $5 billion to build a pipeline out to Imperial County. I think that one's dead now, but it's still an active project. But at the end of the day, we just want LAFCO to do what's fair, both to the Water Authority and us. We think there's a middle ground here that will be perfectly acceptable, the law, and take it from there. And so as the former board president, Jen DeMaio, and Hayden Hamill said, you know, the fact that our ratepayers have been paying more than far more than they should, and it isn't right, and it needs to end. And so that's the main message that we're trying to get across. And I think right now it's Q&A time.
No, not yet. I'd like.
Darn.
King? Oh, okay.
Do you want a solo?
We're ready for Q&A. Okay.
All right.
What's going to happen with that resolution where they wanted to make the vote be countywide?
You know, LAFCO is going to have to consider that. Our attorneys, and I don't know if he can speak for his legal counsel, but it's very explicit in the law what it is. We don't expect that to be successful. The Water Authority is going to push for it, obviously, because it gives them a distinct benefit numbers-wise, because there's 3 million of them and, you know, 50, 60,000 of us up here. But we think that's a dead letter. But we'll have to see what the commission comes up with. Oh, Adam?
Yeah, we'll just add from LAFCO's perspective, too. I mean, that will be a part of the process. I mean, our legal team's evaluating whether it should be countywide or just locally. So ultimately, what's determined will be a part of our recommendation before the LAFCO Commission, and then the LAFCO Commission will make a decision accordingly. So that, from our perspective, it's still being evaluated, but will be part of the proposal in the end.
Is there a reason to have a vote if it's countywide?
Well, it would be expensive. You know, prosecuting an election countywide is very expensive. If it came down to that, our boards would have to take a real hard look at it because the odds of victory are low and the cost to implement is high. So, you know, I think that's one of the reasons the Water Authority is trying to push it, is they know it could drive a nail in the coffin.
What is LAFCO's motivation to let us go? Because what I'm hearing here is that we get the vote after they decide it's okay.
You know, I'll try to channel my inner LAFCO guy, because I spend a lot of time at LAFCO. LAFCO is number one goal is the orderly operations of government, and to make sure that transitions in government are done in an orderly way. Give me the stink eye if I go wrong, and that there's effective government and not overlapping services. And their motivation is to look at it and see what the law allows, both from the County Water Authority Act and the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000, and then apply those laws accordingly. I'm waiting to see if I get the stink eye from Keene.
I mean, I think that's fairly accurate, and I would kind of echo those sentiments that there's no motivation from LAFCO's end. As a government agency, we're here to just evaluate the proposals. We'll take the facts, the information, and evaluate whether there's merit or not, and we'll make that determination accordingly. So there's no motivation one way or the other. Our job, as Tom indicated, is as a government agency, we're here to make sure that the orderly development of services move accordingly in a fashion that is prudent and good government, and those services are being provided to the community in an effective manner. So that's what's being evaluated.
The other question I had is, if we have to pay $60 a month to offset the 12 to 18 million loss that SDCWA has, what do our savings look like versus that $60 a month?
I mean, I can answer that. I think that's one of our, if it's a short-term, you know, thing, then it may be viable. But if LAFCO, for example, said, we're going to make you pay that for 10 years, then they've made this economically unviable, right? So that's the bottom line. So even though everything says, the law says this, you know, here's your savings, here's the cost impact of the Water Authority, if they said, given that, we are still going to come up with something that says Fallbrook and Rainbow ratepayers pay $60 a month so that people in the city of San Diego don't pay $1 a month, that would make this probably unviable, right, depending on the duration of it. So that is one of the big items that the commission gets to decide. So the LAFCO Commission's role is what is right and fair for local governments, for all of you, right? That's their role, is to address that, so, yeah.
$60 a month to somebody who lives in a house or an apartment is substantial.
Yeah, that's what we're...
So a grower is paying thousands a month to support his crops.
What I'm telling you is that would make it unviable. So if we end up in that situation, it's not going to go through if we had to charge everyone $60 a month. That's the end result.
Thank you.
My question's pretty simple. If the law says that there's an exit, a legal way to exit, why is this even being discussed?
You got it.
Why is this even, oh, you gotta push a button?
No, just
Okay. Oh. How do they get to ignore the law or even decide that it's not, viable for this situation or what? I mean, the law is clear cut, as I understand
Do you want to answer? I'll let you.
I hear you.
So there's a distinction that Tom's presentation, my name is Keene Simons, I'm with LAFCO. So Tom's presentation was outstanding, but there was a distinction I would differ with. There is CWA law, which we do not administer at LAFCO. That's something that the Water Authority administers. There is LAFCO law, and that's what we administer. And under that statute, it is contemplated that we term proposals as we see fit to address any issues. And in this particular case, it is clear from our consultant that there is a $13 million exit fee that would be reasonable to apply for a given year. And as Adam said, whether it be a minimum of 3 years or a maximum of 10 years. I think it's important to establish some management or expectations. I am not a commissioner, Mr. Desmond is, but I think it would be reasonable to assume, and Jack and Tom and their boards, I think, have come around to this reality that if LAFCO does say yes to one or both of these proposals, some true-up, an exit fee, departure fee, whatever we want to refer to it, is going to likely be part of the process. Now, it's a monetary number that we're looking at. So Tom mentioned there are X million dollars worth of infrastructure that is in play that has not been built that presumably the Water Authority would save from. So that's something that Adam and our staff would take into consideration in coming up with a number. Again, it's a monetary number that can be both paid in cash or given assets being left on the table can be remedied. But I think, again, the key here is some type of true-up is probably going to be at the LAFCO board for discussion. Whether they say yes to it, don't know, but it is in play.
Right, I'll take it. I like it. May I say something? Thank you. Now, I do understand that the main thing we do want is water. And what we're promising is a properly engineered, reliable source, and probably coming through Skinner anyway. So all we're really doing is tapping into the lines coming from Skinner, right? So I don't see any reasons, though, to give any money at all to those people down there. And not only that, oh, by the way, my background is actually oil companies and oil company lines, and I had about a smattering of water as well. My name is Hamilton, by the way. And anyway, let's go on to it. First of all, every month that goes by costs us money. Every month. Now, you've been going on 2 years now, and LAFCO's dragging out all these sort of experts. I know what they're for. They're to drag it out and cost us money. And the sort of money they're charging, as you said, $40 million a year or something. That's what they say. So they say, we're going to lose 40. Where's that money going to come from? Us, not them. So really, they're saying, we are charging you $40-something million for looking after what we're doing down here. Now, there's another thing. First of all, I've been in this racket sometimes too, and the thing is, as long as every month that goes by, there's extra money from every pocket in this room going. That's every month, and they've been going now for 2 years. Why? Because they got lawyers, they got specialists. I would throw the specialists and the lawyers out right as fast as possible because they don't do anything. First of all we want is to have the proper engineering connections to the water line and say, that's what it costs us. Now you take the rest of it and you take yours. We have equal rights on tapping into those water lines. In other words, we should be ready now to have all the valves and connections and the things ready now and say, this is a knockoff point. Go away.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack.
Well, Hamilton, you are a hard act to follow. I'm Kim Murphy, and, you know, one of the things that frustrates me is how long it takes government to work, right? I've worked in the private sector my entire life, and we do things, we go, okay, get back to me in a week. I need a solution to the problem. So to Hamilton's point, it is really obscene that we are still sitting here 2 years later and dealing with this. But the other big thing is I read that County Water Authority Act created by the Water Authority. Okay, if I create a document and I've written in about an exit strategy and I do not include language that says I'm going to charge you a fee to exit, but I delineate on all the other things that you need to do, why would the rules be changed by an outsider who is overseeing this process when it was created by the specific people that were trying to leave? It makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. And if we are indeed contributing $12 million, how that fee could be any higher than that number is outrageous. They are still going to get the property taxes. The rule was made, and it's not fair. 60,000 people, 55,000 people should not be bearing the burden of the other 3+ million people in this county.
Noel, if I could just respond, and I certainly respect the sentiments, and I understand the frustration, but I do want to push back a little bit on this, or on a couple of ideas. One is that somehow this process is dragging its feet. Now, Tom had a slide, perhaps we could go back to it, that had a timeline of the process. I'm putting pressure on the one gentleman, so I won't do that. Don't worry about it. So we received these proposals in March of 2020. Something else happened in March of 2020. The typical proposal, excuse me. We're respectful of everyone's input. Please be respectful of mine. So in the course of processing any generic proposal at LAFCO, it takes 5 to 6 months, okay? We're dealing with a proposal that has significant political interest from the entire county that involved millions of dollars. So we are crossing every T, dotting every I, because if we mess up and we get sued, it's the taxpayers who ultimately have to cover our costs. So I appreciate it seems like a long process, but ultimately we are due to deliver a public hearing at the end of this year in which we will give our commissioners the opportunity to weigh in on this. And if they say yes, then the question is, do the residents of voters of Rainbow and separately Fallbrook say yes? While this crowd may be pro-reorganization, I assure you that we are receiving inputs from others in this community who are expressing concerns and who are voicing opposition to it. So there is other sides to this story. And again, I appreciate the sentiments, but I want to make clear that this process is proceeding as fast as it can be given the dynamics.
I have a question specifically for you two gentlemen over there. Since the County Water Authority bases its rates that we're all paying on their projected water use, and they've been wrong for better than 2 decades, and all of those rates are based on that, at the same time, we're all being told to conserve water so that our usage is going down regardless of the fact that we're using less because it costs more. Why is nobody from the report that I did read in between falling asleep several times, and everybody in this room and everybody in this conversation, and I wrote a letter to the Rainbow recently, and you responded to me, nobody addresses the fact that county water authorities' rates are based on their projections are wrong. Why is LAFCO, as the little cop here, telling us whether we can do this or not talking to somebody at the County Water Authority about how they're projecting their rates? These rates wouldn't be as horrible today, except for the actions they took 20 years ago that we are now paying for. I'm a left coaster. I was born and raised here. I've been around for a whole bunch of decades. And I have never once seen San Diego County Water Authority with one single annual projection for water use that was anywhere near correct. And I have those here printed if you want to see them. They were recently in the paper. So how come your work, your investigation, the doctor studies, and all of these conversations, nobody's talking about saying county water authorities should be being held to task right now, instead of talking about how much money we should pay them to split off from being ripped off? When somebody holds a gun to my head, which has happened to me before, and ripped me off, I don't say, excuse me, let me give me my last $5 on your way back to your car. That's what you're doing. It's a complete ripoff. So all LAFCO has to do is tell county water authority to get their own bed in order. Leave us alone. Fallbrook and Rainbow are being messed with since before it was a city. We had trouble when they put Pendleton in. We had trouble with Paula. We're having trouble today with the Puma Valley Water District. And you all know it, and nobody is addressing the negative. The negative is county water authorities using our money to stop us from leaving because they want our money to pay for things like desalination plants and crap that's going on to pay for bills that actually they took 20 years ago and they screwed up, and they're still making bad projections. Were their projections for 2022 correct? Can you tell me that? I can tell you they weren't. So far.
So, your comments are certainly well placed, but they should be directed not at LAFCO, but those are comments for the governmental entity responsible for the water authority's rates, which is the water authority. We don't presume that rates are incorrect when we talk to Fallbrook or Rainbow.
Projected usage. That's the problem.
So, sir, I understand your comments, but your comment was, why isn't LAFCO, or at least one of the comments, why isn't LAFCO going and looking at the projections made by the Water Authority?
As part of this process.
Yes, that's exactly what Dr. Hanneman's report has done.
He didn't address that negative. I read it.
I would respectfully counter that comment and we'd be happy to talk about this offline, but yeah. Dr. Hanneman has given LAFCO, as we asked him, an independent third-party review of the water authority's relationship between cost and revenues and these two agencies. And the end result, as we've talked about, is there is an estimate that the water authority will be in the hole for about $12 million should Fallbrook and Rainbow both leave.
That doesn't address.
That is based on.
For the last 20 years.
No, sir.
Yeah, and I think, this is a discussion. I fully understand your point, and to say, Tom and I actually sit on the Water Authority Board, so that's part of our role, and the point you're bringing up is one we bring up, is basically we need to plan and look at what is the worst case, and the worst case tends to be sales drop. Right? With sales drop, then costs go up. And so that point you're making is a point that both of us as sort of minority members of the Water Authority Board have raised, that projection needs to go forward. And also the other thing for LAFCO and Keene, one of the things they did choose to do, which has never been done before, is they are planning to do what's called a municipal sphere review, which is a review of the Water Authority. So some of those items you raised or are items that LAFCO could look at when they do that review of the Water Authority.
Contractor for 30 years. If I did what San Diego County Water Authority has been doing, I would have been in jail.
Yeah. Sorry. And we just so we can get everyone in, we'll probably need to kind of move through it so we're not here till midnight. We'll be here, but yeah.
It might be a naive question, but do we have is there a reserve now that we have a liability for? Did we buy more acre water than we've used so far? Do we?
Do you mean as us as retail agencies?
When do you purchase make a purchase of a volume of water?
Yeah, so the way it works with the water authority, and this gets to some of the previous comments, is you pay for it when you use it. So no one's taken on an obligation. That's part of our argument to LAFCO. So as other agencies, you may have heard City of San Diego, for example, is building a recycled water facility to cut their demand on the water authority significantly. And by 2035, I think it's going about in half. So biggest user is going to cut their use in about half. They have no obligation, right? So their payments to them will go down by half. They have no obligation. They pay for the water they use. But us that are saying, hey, we're going to completely leave, they're saying, well, no, then you have an obligation. So that's part of one of our arguments is you only pay for water when you buy it. There's some fixed charges that are a small part. There's some that tail off over the years, but we have not made, there's no commitment we've made to the water authority to purchase any amount of water as agencies.
Okay, and at the age of 74, am I ever going to see a break on my water bill?
We're hoping. We are hoping. Yeah. So for example, So for Fallbrook Public Utility District, today, all the water we buy is off the Metropolitan Pipeline, right? We have one connection off the Water Authority that we haven't used for 3 or more years. So for Fallbrook Public Utility District, if this happens, all that changes is instead of paying a bill to the Water Authority that's some 30% higher, we pay one that's 30% less to Eastern. From an infrastructure perspective, there is nothing that has to change. Rainbow's got some projects that they're going to build anyway because there's some savings for them to build it. So, yeah. For Rainbow's?
So the projects we're working on are, we call them our wholesale water efficiency projects. The Water Authority, even though we only use about 2 miles of their pipe, we pay the same charge for transporting the water as somebody who's getting the delivery done by the Mexican border. And so it's $175 going up to $195 an acre foot. We can eliminate that charge because Rainbow, we get about 75% of our water from our Met connections, and all the water we take from our southern connections over near the Gopher Canyon area, we have to pay $175 an acre foot more. So our board recently approved funding for the projects to move forward to replace those. It's a revenue, it's a net cost benefit to the ratepayers once these projects are completed, that the cost of the projects will be paid for by the savings. So, well, he's got one connection that's over off Citrus and Wilt that is just not needed. We were built out to serve a lot more water. Rainbow used to serve over double the amount of water we serve today. So we have lots of pipes that are big that have all the water we need. So, do we have a comment from you?
We have a question from somebody online.
This is from Willie Hansen. He says, understand that LAFCO is more dependent upon Colorado River water than our current supplier. If so, is there concern regarding climate change and its impact of the river supply, record low and more demand?
Well, that's a question not really related to detachment, but on general the water situation, and we're in one of those low spots, which we were 5 or 6 years ago, and it'll be wet again, it'll rain again, but the Colorado River is under stress. The Water Authority is heavily invested. That's their number one source. The Eastern has multiple sources of supply, and we believe that we'll actually be more reliable to be on an agency that's not invested all its eggs in one basket. Well, Colorado River and DeSal. So those are both iffy sources. Owens Valley serves the City of Los Angeles only. So,
just a few questions and comments to LAFCO, the representatives here. I hope you will take into consideration when you talk about chewing up. As Tom mentioned, there's 30 million, was it? 30 million on the books for projects that have never been done. Now, I have solar at my house, so I get true up every year from SDG&E, which is another ripoff. But the point is, at least I get 4 cents a kilowatt hour instead of 35 cents or 39 that they charge us. But the point is if there's 30 million on the books, I really, really do hope that LAFCO will take that into consideration for any departure fee that should be paid. As Tom said, they've already got the money. To request more money should be outlawed. So, and again, please take that under consideration. I saw something here about $7.6 million in savings per year if we did the switch. Now, how does that revert back to the household? I know everyone uses water, the farmer's using more water, but our water bill, you know, when we moved to Fallbrook in 2014, the next year they had the drought, and they asked us all to cut back. And we did. We cut back 30%. And the reward for that was the rate per gallon of water went up. So I'm paying more now than I did when I first moved in. So my question...
So my question is, I don't need Mike.
People online won't be able to hear you.
My question is, if we do make this change and we're saving money
from getting water from the other,
your fixed costs aren't changing. So is our per gallon cost going to go more?
Yeah, so the goal, and we're under the process of doing the projection right now. So every year, your cost of water has gone up. We're the only business that has to tell people to use less of our product, even though the net impact of that is it makes us more expensive to do our job. But that's just the nature of a water agency. But agree, 100%. The best case is everyone uses every drop of water that we have available, right? That's the best case. During these droughts, it has a double impact of asking people to conserve, using less water, and then impacting rates. The short answer, though, to your question is we are projecting, so our board looked at it, we are projecting to do hopefully a decrease, about a 5% decrease in the cost of water if this goes through, followed by holding rates flat for some period of time is the board projection. If we don't do that, just so everyone's clear in here, if the cost of water continues to go up at about 8%, that 8% gets passed through. We're a retail gas station in a lot of cases. Fallbrook, fortunately, we have a local supply project now that buffers some of that, but that 8% cost is our biggest single cost. And so that's what we're looking at. And we understand part of the reason we're doing this and dealing with all that goes with it is that we understand that's really economically unviable at some point. That is a real problem for our community. If we say 10 years from now, we're still going up 8%, that's a real problem for what Fallbrook looks like. We understand that. Our board understands that. And that's why we're really trying to pursue this and to be able to do something different.
Yeah, excuse me, question here.
We got the mic going around. Noel's trying to guide this in some fashion if we can.
Question on the 30 mil that we've supposedly already paid in there. Have we, in fact, as ratepayers, paid for something, and are we supposed to be getting that thing, whatever it is, for that $30 million?
Yeah, so if we don't, if this fails, if this whole exercise fails and we remain with the Water Authority, so if the LAFCO Commission says no, or they, come up with a fee that makes it financially unviable and it's unable to move forward, then the Water Authority would need to build those facilities for Fallbrook and Rainbow.
Sure. That's not my question. My question is, have we paid $30 million for something that we have not received yet? Okay. So if that's the case, then it seems that this departure fee should be coming to us, not to the Water Authority. How does anybody, no, I'm serious. No. How does anybody in their right mind tell me that we've paid for something and now, in order to leave, we have to pay for something else when we've already paid money for something that we haven't received?
No, it's a very valid point. I'd say one of our directors, Charlie Walk, who is in the back, has made that point repeatedly. So that is a valid perspective to bring to LAFCO is, not only why are we...
Why is LAFCO, I mean, how did they come up with this so-called expert, Dr. whatever his name is? How was he picked out of whatever? And, what type of interest does he have in this particular process? I mean, is he a political type thing or?
No, he looked at the evaluation in a certain way, and it was basically to say the Water Authority has commitments for a certain amount of water, and they've committed to that purchase, and so you, Fallbrook, should pay for that in the future, even though that's not the same for any other member agency. So that was his analysis, which we don't agree with.
We got some more online questions.
We have another online question.
We have a question and a comment. The comment is from Michelle McCaffrey. We have been told that Fallbrook receives no benefit of the infrastructure from the SC County Water Authority. If that is true, the vote should remain within the Fallbrook and Rainbow residents. And a question from Jesse Myers. What kind of savings will this actually give to the ratepayers? The presentation seemed to only say that this will halt rate raises. Haven't actually heard if actual savings will be passed on to the ratepayers.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we don't know what savings are going to be, depending if LAFCO, let's say, we're going to save $7.5 million a year, and LAFCO says we have to pay 15 to leave. I don't think we're going to see any bills go down real fast. So we hope and pray that will not occur. Yeah, and it's right. And until we know what the terms of the detachment are, we can't make an accurate financial projection. We know what the gross amount that we would save if it went through, just like the law says, like County Water Authority Act law says, to be clear. But we don't know what the commission's going to come up with. We agree with some of the comments that we've already paid into systems. They've enjoyed our money for a long time, and we should get credited for that. But we won't know. Now, as I indicated, we've got in Rainbow, and I know Fallbrook does as well, we got a lot of old infrastructure that needs replacement. And while our board could just say, hey, just take every penny and shove it right back into ratepayers' pockets, then we'd have to just ask for some of it back, because we got to replace these pipes. Because if you want to have water at your house on the hill, the pipe needs to be there to get it done. So, next question.
Yeah, hi. So I've been in the green industry and the ag industry for 40 plus years and watched a lot of water supplies go up and down and needed cutbacks. And County Water Authority, I mean, marketing is marketing, but they had been advertising heavily about the diversification of their water sources and where it comes from. So my two-part question, I guess, would be, does County Water Authority truly have a more diverse source of water than Eastern? And then short of East Lake and Chula Vista, that still construction is going on, I feel like San Diego is more built out. And how is that going to look compared to Eastern when you go up to Temescal Valley? And sure. Eastern's huge, and there it is where all the construction is going on. So how does that look in 5 to 10 years? With all those new connections out
when the
there.
Water Authority shows you their pie chart of sources, they include their member agency supplies in there too, whether it's a local agency like City of San Diego developing a recycled water project, or Sweetwater Authority who has Loveland Reservoir, local supplies. The reality is right now about 90% of the Water Authority's supply is Colorado River supply through the QSA deliveries. Now it gets mixed in through MET and it gets blended with everything else. But it's that and diesel. That's their kind of supplies. Eastern has MET supply, which is a blend of Colorado River and State Water Project, as well as local supplies from a number of groundwater projects that are in that area, as well as recycled water. Now, in our agreement with them at this time, our board, while they have the option in the future to buy in to local supply projects, should they choose to, right now we're contracting with them just to get metropolitan water to us, because we figure we need to get through this hurdle first, and then to make determination of whether to make other investments into local supplies in that area. So for right now, our supply of Eastern will be just that. Now, Eastern's other supplies will, when metropolitan, it happens every 10 years or so. There's a drought and everybody's got to cut back. Their local supplies will help them shield us from some of the impacts of metropolitan's cutbacks. So they will provide a benefit to us. That's outlined in some of the reports they've given to LAFCO. So it's tricky. Water supply in the Southwest is difficult. Well, where's the next?
Another one over here.
Oh.
She doesn't want to use the microphone, though.
Well, no one will be able to hear her online, though.
Good evening. I'm Eileen Laney. I'm on the Fallbrook Planning Group. I share the group.
Eileen, you got to use the mic. Come on, Eileen. Come on, Eileen.
Can you hear me now? I thought I had and my husband says I have a really loud voice. So anyway, I'm Eileen Delaney. I'm on the Fallbrook Planning Group. I chair the group, and as most of you know, we are elected to advise the county on government affairs and things like that. At our March meeting, we voted to support the detachment, and we asked that LAFCO recommend that they follow the law. We sent a letter to Supervisor Desmond as chair of LAFCO, and it is our hope that LAFCO recommends also the detachment in a fair and reasonable way We need this. Thank you.
We have one up front's been waiting a long time. Oh, I'll just call you up to ask it here.
Good evening. My question is short. I want to know if the information you have shown on each one of these screens is going to be available to some of we oldies that don't seem to be able to digest it all at one time.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of information both on our home websites and also at ratepayers4waterchoice.com. If you, Noel here can give you printed copies of it if you want to hang around after the meeting. I'm sure we could print some out for you if you like, but we can definitely do that. Noel, this young lady's been waiting to speak for a long time. I want to give her a shot.
The other thing, if you really can't sleep and want to see all the correspondence between us and the Water Authority that has occurred over the last 2 years, which is somewhat entertaining in some cases. LAFCO has done a very good job on their website. There's every piece of correspondence. So if you go to San Diego LAFCO, pull the item up, it's on their homepage, and you will have probably 2,000 pages of enjoyable reading. But you will hear many of the arguments you've made today, we've made those same arguments in trying to push that position at LAFCO.
Just one other quick thing. I want to thank each one of you for taking the time to come tonight and to hear what the leaders have to say.
Noel, I'm going to let her use this microphone.
Okay. But tomorrow morning, we'll have this whole evening on our website. Just look at the top of our website for the picture of all of you in the room, and you can click on the link.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd liken this to a divorce. And there's going to be money to pay. Who gets the house? Now, I want to look forward. After the divorce, where do you go? And you started to touch on it, EMWD. So I'm going to throw some questions out. Doesn't mean you can answer them all. I know it's something we're going to be looking forward to. So what's their impact? EMWD's impact when we attach? Who is their water authority, and what is their financial take, and how will it change? What's EMWD's financial load, bonds, et cetera?
So that's a great question. The Water Authority is an agency made up of 24 different agencies. It's a different body. There's only one of them in the state. They have their own act, the County Water Authority Act. Eastern Municipal Water District is a municipal water district. It's just like ours. Fallbrook's a public utility district, but there's 5-member board of directors. If we annex in, our area will be part of one division, and you all will vote for one board member someone would run for the board for Eastern, and they would make decisions. In our arrangement with them, we don't take on any of their liabilities that they have. All they are is a conduit to serve Met water to us. In most of metropolitan service area, the metropolitan member agency doesn't own any assets. In our case with Eastern, we're not going to touch any of their assets. We don't touch the Water Authority's assets either, but that's another story. And so they're going to charge us $11 an acre foot over the Met price. We're paying the Water Authority $500 or $600 an acre foot over the Met price. And so that's the big difference. And now, as I said earlier, if we were to so choose, if our boards decided, the people you elect, that they wanted to invest in a local supply project up in Eastern service area, then we could do that, and then we would do that voluntarily. But the way it is now, it's just, and that $11 an acre foot hasn't changed in like 30 years, because it's just what it costs to send the invoice. So we won't take on any additional burden. They won't make any money. They're kind of neutral on this. They've said it many times. Our meetings are like, hey, we're just here. We can serve it if you want, but if LAFCO says no, let's get off their back.
Yeah, and the divorce is a reasonable sort of assessment, except the way it's laying out now, we're paying alimony and losing all our stuff, right? So that is a fair assessment.
Hi. So I have two questions for you. I'm an avocado farmer. I'm sure there's a lot of ag people in here. So so far I'm in favor of detachment, but I want to know, will there be an ag rate? Or am I going to get a surprise like this Prop 218 that drastically increased our water bill? And the second part of that is, I spent the afternoon on a call with the County of San Diego for their sustainable lands initiative that they're looking for. And their thing is, what's your main concern? Cost of water. you want to keep ag in San Diego, fix the cost of water to farmers. I'm not discounting that there's a lot of homeowners and stuff, but if you want ag in the county, you need to fix the water rate. So will there be a rate for farmers? And if there's a bunch of stuff from San Diego County Water Authority, get the County of San Diego to pony up some of that to keep ag in San Diego.
And that's a great point. We've been talking with people at the county level, and I know Supervisor Desmond's here, is that they're, you know, this is one thing to where the county is involved. I mean, I think LAFCO is a separate entity, but technically they're a subset of the county. That if the county is truly dedicated to trying to help ag, Rainbow still sells 65% of our water to ag users. And we've all seen what's happened to ag. Everybody around here can see a dead grove from their backyard. And so we need to do something. And this is the one thing we can do. And so we hope that the LAFCO, as kind of a county organization, will see that, hey, yeah, the Water Authority has this kind of argument about how there's pennies on the dollar. I mean, remember, this loss of the Water Authority is a little over 1% of their total budget. So this isn't like it's going to clobber them. This is just a rounding error for those guys. But it's a big deal here in our area. And so what we believe is that they should take that into consideration. They're looking at it. This is a unique area, Fallback and Rainbow. And as far as an ag rate, again, until we see the numbers, we don't know exactly what it can be, but we do plan to have a rate that would be similar to where if a farmer wanted cheaper water, well, first of all the water will be cheaper than the Water Authority's ag rate, because that's $1,400 an acre foot. We're going to get it for $11 or $1,200. But we do expect to be able to carve out a rate for farmers that are willing to take a little cutback in the time of shortage so that the residential customers don't have to cut as much. Similar sort of thing to the PSAR program now. But again, we can't make any specific numerical projections until we know how big the bill is to depart. Who's next? Oh.
My name is Ross Pike. I'm on the planning group with Eileen, and we actually voted unanimously to send that letter. My question is for LAFCO. So does the time since we began this process come into play when determining the duration of the exit fee?
They thought about it for a second.
I mean, the short answer to that is no. I mean, the duration of the application and the time of this is not related to any sort of exit fee that may or may not be considered as the proposal.
If I could, just to give a food for thought for LAFCO, because the Water Authority on numerous occasions has said that detachment is different than like the city of San Diego, who's going to roll off about 90,000 acre feet of demand with pure water. We're rolling off 20,000 total. And they say, well, we have time to plan for that. Well, they've known about this, it'll be 3 years this month when I first told them our plans to do it. They've already had 3 years to work on it, so I think they've had plenty of time to get ready to adapt. So hopefully LAFCO can take that into consideration. Noel, who's next?
This gentleman's been holding his hand up for a very long time.
Sorry, we're using the microphone because there's people watching on YouTube and they can't hear the questions otherwise.
My question is this. I'm surprised that the issue of which guys get the vote hasn't been resolved, because think about this. We could go for the next 6 months while there's a lot of deliberations and coming up with a fair proposal, and LAFCO says, yeah, you're right, you should be detached, and yet the law as to who the guys are, whether it's Rainbow and FPUD are going to vote, or if it's the entire county are going to vote. So I'd like to ask LAFCO, would you concurrently decide that issue so that we don't have to find out in December or January that it's those guys that get the vote? So let's get that issue resolved now.
We have 2 more online.
I think it's a fair and reasonable question. The caveat to that is, though, it's the LAFCO commission, and those commissioners make that decision. So we're evaluating that through our legal counsel and all the information that's been provided, and as a LAFCO staff, we will be making that as a part of our proposal and or recommendation, but ultimately that decision, whether it's countywide or local-wide, is determined by those commissioners at LAFCO. So
Do it sooner rather than later. Do it now, before you spend $1 million.
Well, I think there's also a point that other agencies.
later, because all of this might be for naught. Well, just quickly, to eat the hour. It wasn't a shut up. Well, Gene, wasn't like a year or two ago, it didn't come up at the last group board. You decided not to go countywide at that point in time. However, the LAFCO board changes and people take different positions, and that could change. But I recall, Keen, am I making stuff up, or what? Or did this actually came to us? I think it was pre-COVID when this came before us.
Chair Desmond, your memory is good with one caveat. It was asked of the commission. The commission took no action because you couldn't. We hadn't brought you a proposal. So ultimately, as Adam said, whether the commission wants to proceed with a vote of just Fallbrook and Rainbow, which I will attest is the standard process, or the county water authority's request that it be expanded, that's something that the commission will take up along with this proposal. But I think and you go back to, I think it's our April 2020 commission meeting that Chair Desmond's referring to. I think you could at least see some first impressions when the topic was raised.
I think most of the comments were negative about going countywide on it at that time, but the board has changed and it could change its mind.
Yeah, and I think that you'll also find other member agencies in the county water authority wouldn't want that to happen either, because if you think about it, LAFCO makes a lot of decisions based on elections that happen when, say, a new development occurs, and the one property owner who owns all the lots votes to have an election to join. Well, somebody can come on and say, well, that needs to be the whole county, and nobody wants that because those countywide votes get really squirrely really fast, as we've all seen. Yeah, I know, right. Right, yeah.
So I apologize if I mispronounced the name, but it's from Jeannie Meadow. Tom Kennedy has been quoted as saying we get as much as 15% of our water from desal plant. Today, he says we get zero. How do we make up this difference? Rainbow and FPUD are very different and very different water issues. This is just one more step of being dissolved into Riverside County. What will that do to your property value?
Well, hi, Jeannie. We're sorry we can't see you here in person. I don't know, where are you? Hi, Jeannie. I don't know, she quoted me as saying 50% from the desal plant. No, the desal plant periodically will burp a little water north, but only in the areas well south of like the Lilac Bridge, in the very southern part of Rainbow service area around Gopher Canyon. When the demands south are lower than the desal plant and the Twin Oaks plant put out, a little bit will push north. So we do see a little bit of desal water during low demand periods. But our estimate is about 95% of the water that Rainbow serves is all coming from the north, from Lake Skinner. And it's an unusual hydraulic situation when the water burps north.
Yeah, in the second part of it, so this has been sort of a talking point put out by the Water Authority. We will still be part of San Diego County. Jim Desmond will still be your supervisor. So where we purchase our water from does not affect who does the roads, who does the storm drains. All that is the same thing. It is only who Fallbrook Public Utility District purchases its water from. That is the only change in terms of how we are connected. And Eastern will become a multi-county agency. So if some of our ratepayers will vote for people at Eastern, Eastern will also have people in Riverside. So Eastern as an entity will represent the interests of, if this happens, Fallbrook and Rainbow and the communities it serves in Riverside County. We are not moving to Riverside County. This isn't part of any proposal to do that. It has nothing to do with anything else in Riverside County.
I just want to find out why nobody is suing San Diego County to shut the desal plant down, and how much we would save if the desal plant just didn't exist. According to this report, it says that Carlsbad Ocean desal plant shows full performance at the facility. And they didn't, and Poseidon actually didn't provide roughly 500 or 5,000 acre-foot of water, and were fined $2 million for not meeting their guidelines and requirements.
Yeah, so if you really can't sleep, the other thing you can read is the water purchase agreement between the Water Authority and Poseidon. So they have a long-term commitment to buy water. There's terms if they don't produce, what they have to pay for, but there's a long-term commitment from the Water Authority to Poseidon through this water purchase agreement. So if they didn't vote for it. Yeah, and Fallbrook actually was one of the strong voices against it. And really the challenge is how it was structured. So maybe, building it could make sense under certain circumstances, but how it was structured, that water is very expensive, and it's going to continue to be very expensive. But there really is no choice. If you're with the water authority, there's a long-term commitment till the end of that term, which is 30 years, I think, or something like that. So it's got 20 plus more years left in it. Yeah, because let's get people that haven't. Why don't we let some people that haven't spoke yet first? Yeah, there's some.
They've been waiting.
Yeah, so.
How many people have been waiting on water? They're sitting there eating chips.
Yeah.
So, if we agree to this, and LAFCO says this is a good idea, and we have to pay that fee, right? Water authority says, no, can we pursue it legally? We are still gonna have to pay that fee.
Oh, you mean if we sued LAFCO?
No, the water authority can't say no. The water authority has.
Yeah. So the water authority doesn't get a vote, right? That's why LAFCO exists, right? So that if we had to go to the water authority and said, will you let us leave? The answer would be no.
Like your money.
So that is part of the reason LAFCO's there, to sort of be the referee in this and say, can you or can you? Is it responsible? What will you owe? So that's the term. They could decide to sue LAFCO if they were unhappy, which is part of subtly why LAFCO is being very careful in what they do, so that if they are sued, everything is taken care of. So that's why, as frustrating as for all of you, it's same with me, and I have to write letters and deal with this much longer than I'd hoped to. They are being very careful to make sure everything's done properly, because the worst case would be to take 2 years, get to the end of the line, and then have a flaw in what we did and start over if they did approve it.
Thank you for taking my question. First off, you said that there were 10 members of LAFCO. Are they all exclusively to San Diego County?
I think that, Adam was talking about the 10 members in the ad hoc committee. There's 8 members, in the LAFCO commission with 2 county supervisors. One of them is sitting behind you there. There's, 2 special district reps, 2 city of San Diego reps, an at-large public member, and, did I get all 8 there? Who's the other city? Oh, another city rep. 2
members from special districts.
2.
1 public member.
Andy Vanderlyn.
County supervisor.
2 county supervisors. 2 people from the cities. 1 city of San Diego. Right.
Okay. So then my question to you, Mr. Wilson, which district do you represent?
He used to work for Supervisor Jacobs.
I don't represent any district, so I'm an outside consultant that was hired by LAFCO staff to help them through the process.
Do you reside in San Diego County?
Yes.
Okay. Then the last question is that during the LAFCO process, they're elected officials, so they have public meetings. Where do we direct our letters, and when can we attend their meetings and voice our opinion directly to them?
Yeah, LAFCO meetings are held on the first Monday of every month, although they were dark this morning. They don't have to 9 a.m. down at the county, but they do have an online participation. It's sdlafco.org, if I'm not mistaken. There's a whole web page on our situation, and there's contact information to get a hold of Keene and other staff members there. LAFCO likes nothing better than good public participation, because what LAFCO does, a lot of it toils away. They do a lot of hard work, and nobody pays any attention to it. Every now and then they get some excitement. So having a couple extra public speakers might just make Keene's day. I don't know. Is that fair to say, Keene? Okay.
Now I understand that everybody's going to be collecting the $5 a month from each of us on another note on special interest groups here in Fallbrook.
That's a whole other kettle of squid. That's a whole other kettle of squid.
Vote for it. LAFCO said it's okay for them to receive the fees and distribute them.
Yeah, so either I can take this or let Dave, but I'll take it. So what you're referring to is there was a request from a number of community groups, and some members may be in here to speak to it, to basically allocate some of our property tax to help fund, Mission Road median, other projects that those groups have been taking care of that they're having trouble taking care of, right? So those groups came to our board. They agreed to pay the application fee to LAFCO to do that. So there is some amount of money LAFCO said will allow you to reallocate the revenue. if this goes forward in the right way, we'll be able to do that and still provide relief on water costs. If it doesn't, so if that moves forward and gets completed and we don't leave the water authority, then there's an economic impact because that money right now is used to do a lot of our pipeline work. But we're reallocating existing funds. I'm answering it as sort of a technocrat, I apologize, but that's the real answer. So we collect some property tax revenue, we're reallocating that property tax revenue. But if nothing else changes, so if we stay with the water authority, that money right now is used for capital improvements. Our capital improvement needs aren't going down, so there is going to be an impact to recover that revenue if nothing else changes. But that process is a protest process through LAFCO. But again, if you have concerns, you know, it's the same people that you need to voice those concerns to. And right now, there's a process. It's May 31st. There's a protest hearing in here. There's forms online. So if you don't like that, don't want it to happen, you sign those forms, you send them into LAFCO. So that's the process. So people, you know, people get together and go, no, we don't want this. The board said we'll support it. We think it's important. But again, if the community says we don't want it, we don't want FPUD to be helping with this stuff, we don't want the money to go to that, go on our website, the form is on there, or on LAFCO's website, it's on there. You click on, fill it out, send it into LAFCO.
That's got a lot of work already to do, let alone dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, in the way this is, and sorry, we're off on a bit of a tangent, so I'll wrap it up, but the way that's going to be set up is largely that money is going to be set aside. There's going to be a group of volunteers, whoever decides they want to be involved in this, they would develop what projects do we want to fund. That money would go to fund those projects. So the idea is to try to do it very little overhead from us, because like you said, I got a lot of other stuff to do, but just pick out projects, those get sort of funded through that money. Yeah, sorry.
So we have a question from Chuck S. Is there any difference in the quality of water from Eastern, total dissolved solids and salinity?
Yeah, so for both of us, the water we're getting, Tom occasionally gets a very little bit of desal water in the southern end, but it's a little bit unpredictable, so it's hard to measure that. Otherwise, you're going to be getting the water from the same source. So it's Lake Skinner Treatment Plant, regardless of who we're using, that water is coming north to south. Yeah.
My water bill is $180 a month right now. And which, am I paying less or more if we do the switch?
So if we do the switch, you will pay less. How long it takes to pay less is going to have a lot to do with what LAFCO puts forward. But if we don't switch, the water bill is going to go up more than if we do.
Hey, you're lucky.
Yeah. Hey. I'm in Rainbow, and my water bill's a lot. So.
I have a question about something that's been discussed here, and it's sort of interesting, this exit fee. It sounds like it's like a news narrative that somebody said, well, what about an exit fee? And now it has legs. Let's go back to the law. Don't laws matter anymore? I mean, even for LAFCO, to even consider an exit fee, they ought to be talking about what the law is instead of some exit fee that was pulled out of midair by somebody that wants to get paid.
Yeah, and I think those are good comments to make to LAFCO and the commission. And I think, as Keene said, there's a CWA Act, and then LAFCO has broad authority. So that's sort of LAFCO deciding what's fair is part of where the exit fee comes from. What is fair for us to leave? The input from, you know, those ratepayers is important to kind of express what you believe is fair when that item comes before the commission.
And what was that website again, if you want to send it?
sdlafco.org.
Hey,
Who's got him, and then you.
A real quick one here. I'm kind of proponent to competition here, and I know instead of doing it where you do, I say let's keep it attached, and why don't you bring another one attached so you have some competition between the authority and the Eastern, and you know all it is throw some more valves in there, and that way you have two accesses.
Well, we've thrown around some crazier ideas.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know there's some legalities to it, but I think when you have a choice between things, you have a choice of, you have an opportunity to go with lower cost.
Yeah. Yeah, sadly, and that's, first LAFCO wouldn't allow you to have two wholesale providers. In the structure of the water authority, part of the reason that we're pursuing this is they have a number of costs that if you're a member, you pay. So if we did that, we would still have all those costs, and we would then be paying on top. So it just, we've got to be one or the other. That's just the way this is set up. So there's no way to be part of both.
We wish it were so.
Okay.
Previous question, your answer seemed to imply that, I'm yelling loud enough.
Well, the other people online won't be able to hear you.
From the previous question of this, your answer seemed to imply that the law says a certain thing for CWA and for us to exit and all of that, but that for somehow LAFCO has the ability to override the law and make their own independent decision of the law.
LAFCOs have broad quasi, you want to take this one? You want to finish that thought?
So, sir, it's not that LAFCO is overseeing or ignoring a law. In fact, the opposite is true. We are applying LAFCO law, and LAFCO law very clearly says, when appropriate, apply terms and conditions, which can include, but certainly not limited to, the payment of amounts to address any true-ups, a term that I use to address, and perhaps using the analogy of a divorce, if the other party, in this case the water authority, is going to have a budgetary hole. And just from our math, the economic impact on a percentage of Fallbrook and Rainbow leaving the water authority is not pennies on the dollar. It's 6.35%. That's a number. It's our number, and I'm not saying Jack and Tom and their board is going to co-sign with that, but that's the number our water expert, Dr. Hanman, has provided us.
Well, it's $10 to $12 million, and their operating revenues are $650 million a year. So 6.3%. Here we are at math again. We got to work on that.
So it's important that we understand the numbers are going to be a bit different depending if you ask Fallbrook, Rainbow, or now in this case, LAFCO. Certainly if you ask the Water Authority, and I will attest, when Tom said initially the first letter we got from the Water Authority was something like the true-up is $1.2 billion with a B. That was the initial, that's where we started from, okay? So through this very public process, we now have parameters that LAFCO's consultant and a 10-member advisory committee has signed off on that says the number for Fallbrook and Rainbow to collectively leave a fair exit or departure fee is $13 million a year. If you were to pay that over 10 years, that's $130 million. Okay, let's just call it a return on investment. Over 30 years, though, if Fallbrook and Rainbow are saving $8 million, that's $160 million. So 160 minus 130, there's a 30 million. So what I'm trying to get at, sir, and to everyone, there is numbers. Well, it is late, so my numbers might be off, but the issue at LAFCO is making sure that we are addressing Water Authority as a subject agency's contesting, and we are vetting their numbers. And not to sound like a broken record, but I think it'd be reasonable to assume some true-up is going to be in the offering from staff in our recommendation.
And again, I hope they consider the $30 billion as part of that.
All right, where is Noel? Oh, are we done? Any more?
Questions?
Wear everyone out yet?
All right. Oh, hold on. There's one more over there.
Oh, wait.
Because it's almost bare 30, for Pete's sake.
One more, and then.
And if you have any questions, we'll be hanging around.
But let's try to beat everyone
I'm
down.
ashamed because I should already know this, but is the county water authority, are those elected positions?
No, each member agency appoints someone to go serve down there. Sometimes it's a board member, sometimes it's a general manager, sometimes it's a political appointee. So none of those people are elected to serve the water authority, although some are elected officials. All right, well, thanks, everybody, for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Before you leave,
we'll be around here to answer questions for a little while.
Flowers.
I got to get a drink of water.
Jack, will you pick a name?
I know it's going to be, just hand them out.
Bob Hume, are you here? No. Lynn Barnett? Lynn Barnett, are you here? Kirk Whistler? No? Is that you? Are you Lynn? Pick one. Randy Schaefer? Janet Myers? Janet Myers, are you here? Mike Osborne?